crazy time, at least a little bit. I mean, for those of us with children, small children, it's more crazy than for the rest, I think. I have a cousin named Natalie, and Natalie, I think, has 124 children now. I can't keep track. She has a whole litter of little ones in her house. And a few years ago, she walked into the kitchen during Christmas, and she heard from the other side of the bar, the countertop, she heard her 3-year-old say, "Now, little baby, this is gonna hurt." And she wisely rushed around the corner to see what was going on. Just in time, she saw her 3-year-old standing before her infant with her brand new wiffle ball bat, about to knock that little baby upside the head. Christmas is always crazy around our house. Fittingly, there seems to be a little craziness, I think, in our gospel lesson today, with dreams and angels and pregnant girls. But first, before we get to this gospel, let me share this from C.S. Lewis. Lewis wrote, "Reality is iconoclastic." Reality is iconoclastic, simply meaning that whatever icon or image of God that we have, whatever understanding of God that you and I have, reality, the truth of God, will destroy it. Reality is iconoclastic. It destroys any image or understanding. God is too great for any understanding that we have. He's beyond our understanding. The real pinch to this, of course, is that our understandings of God are so important to us. Such blessings to us. They guide us. So it's not that we're not to have the understandings, but Lewis calls us to recognize how quickly our understandings and beliefs in God, how quickly suddenly they'll become the box in which we try to keep God within. And we say, no, God does this, so therefore He doesn't do that. Right? But God is bigger than this. God's reality is iconoclastic. And if we are to ever have a growing understanding of God, which we all must seek to have a growing understanding of God, then we must be leery of this fact that our beliefs and understandings become the box for God. Lewis also wrote this famous and important line. He said, "Reality is iconoclastic, and I want God, not my idea of God." Our gospel lesson today, I said, was some craziness. Poor Joseph. We know this story, right? We know this story so well. Joseph's stuck in a terrible spot. He's been excited about getting married to this woman Mary, hasn't he? He is. The families are excited. And then he finds out that it seems that she's knocked up. I mean, this is terrible stuff. And he's ashamed, he's humiliated. Plans had to be changed. Families disappointed, communities ashamed. He had planned to dismiss her quietly. But then this angel shows up, right? This angel shows up and tells him exactly what God wants him to do. And there's no arguing with an angel, now is there? So Joseph is in between a rock and a hard place here. He has the angel on one side telling him exactly what God wants. And on the other, well, he has everybody else telling him exactly what God wants from him. He has the law, the way of his people, the law of the Jewish people. He said, come on, Joe. You got to know that this is the way God acts. He wouldn't do that. No, you obviously have to do this. He's between a rock and a hard place. And in the immortal words of my 3-year-old niece from 2 summers ago, no matter which, 2 Christmases ago, no matter which way Joseph turns, this is going to hurt. No matter which direction. Poor Joseph. Thankfully, of course, like Lewis, as Lewis put it, Joseph's decided that he wanted God. And not anybody's idea of God. So he dared to go against the law of man, the law of acceptability, in order to follow the true law of God. I'm going to go off script a little bit. Because whenever when I say the law of the Jewish people, Christians, we think we have some misconception of it. The law that Joseph had over here telling him what to do was a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, the law of the Jewish people. True, now it can seem ridiculous. There's some 600 and something laws and regulations on how they're supposed to do everything. That can seem overbearing. But the true purpose of the law is gorgeous. It's merely meant to integrate faithfulness into every aspect of a Jewish person's life. So whether they're washing their hands or investing money or getting married, they do it in a particular way, which shows their allegiance to God. They recognize God is over this. It's gorgeous, isn't it? Truly, of course, what this becomes for us is a perfect example of an idol, right? Or an icon. For what happens is they begin to say, the law is not the way of God's people. The law is now the way of God. And anything outside of the law is not of God. So they form the law into a box of certainties, and it becomes an icon which reality must destroy. Over and over, we see the contrast in the Bible. We see the contrast in our lives, the way we are told to go, the way that people say is God's way, which really is icon worship, versus God's true way, which is courageous and surprising. And truthfully, it's often hard to know the difference. Starting with Joseph and the story we read again today and throughout the gospel, we are shown that in order to have a growing understanding of God, we have to admit that we don't ever really have Him all figured out. In order to be faithful in the reality of our lives, out there, we're required to go into unexpected places, breaking with popular opinion. We too must answer, do we want God or just the idea of God? And all this sounds good to me from this pulpit and niceties of sermons, but we all know this is messy, difficult business that I'm talking about here. And this gospel reading, I think if we looked at it truthfully, it would leave us with a question. How in the world do we follow God if it is a God who does that? If He's beyond our understanding? I mean, Joseph, he had an angel. If you realize Joseph had made the wrong decision, he was gonna dismiss her, distance himself. But he had an angel. We normally don't have angels, do we? Well, maybe not to talk to us so clearly. So how in the world are we to do this with any degree of accuracy or effectiveness? A friend of mine named Lisa Cressman gave me, not long ago, a vision of this, which I think is very helpful. Lisa is married to an interventional radiologist in a hospital in Houston. And one of his duties is he has to read X-ray films of organs of the body. And he tells a story of learning how to read those X-ray films. He says that at first he was just bewildered by them. One fuzzy gray blotch on the X-ray film looks just like another fuzzy gray blotch. And yet one fuzzy gray blotch is a healthy organ, and another fuzzy gray blotch is a cancerous tumor. Or was it this fuzzy gray blotch that was the tumor and this was the healthy? You see the debacle. He said there were books to help him that he could not have done without. But that it took far more than books alone to learn to see in the blurriness. It took practice. It took showing up every day, day after day, looking into the blurriness of real life situations. It took dedication to the task. And through continuous study and real life experience and mentors to help along the way, he slowly began to be able to see within the blurriness the healthy from the sick, the good from the bad, the right way forward from the wrong. we do not get God the way we want God. We get God the way He is, and like it or not, learning to follow Him in the blurriness of our real lives is very much like learning to read X-rays. We have good books. We have the good book to help. But studying even these stories is not enough. Our job in this life is to show up courageously every day, devoted to the task of knowing God in truth. And through continuous study and devotion and real-life experience and mentors, we'll slowly and faithfully begin to see Him moving amidst the blurriness. We're able to see the right way from the wrong. And this sounds so heavy and burdensome, so unsimple, so difficult. But if we try, if we put our hands to the task, what we find immediately is God's grace and mercy and His support, which helps us along the way. Lewis is right, of course. Reality is iconoclastic. And following God, therefore, requires us to read the blurriness of our lives and to find Him in the midst. And my friends, this sermon, this message is one of the reasons why I love being Episcopalian. Because this is sort of a description of our faith in our church, what makes us different from many. Because we actually do try to see God beyond our own beliefs. We try to see God in surprising places. We try to have the courage to go and be true, genuine Christians. For example, this week, a few young adults asked me to start a young adult Bible study in a bar down the street. It's outside many lines for many Christians. But here at this church, we'll say, okay, let's do it. We'll have many ministries which stretch us, which we go out into the community and meet people where they are in order to help them to find God there in the midst of their lives. I love being an Episcopalian. And I find freedom in being a Christian, doing this work that we're called to do. Together we'll seek to have that courage this Christmas and every day. That courage of Joseph to seek to choose God and nothing short of Him. Amen.